Hello, everyone. I am Jessica Gaffney, head of the tech division at the ALSD, and we're thrilled to have you all here with us today. The ALSD would like to wish everyone a very happy holiday season, and we'd like to welcome you to today's webinar. Can occupancy tracking help you drive revenue per square foot? And to help us learn more about this subject, I'd like to introduce you to our panelists today. We have Robert Cordova, Chief Technology and Strategy Officer at the Milwaukee Bucks. We have Adam Stover, Senior Principal at Populous, and our moderator today, John McNamara, a Sales Director at Armored Things, who I'd like to turn the stage over to now. Thanks, John.
Thanks so much, Jessica. I may have met some of you at ALSD in Vegas this past year, but to reintroduce myself, I'm John McNamara. I work for Armored Things on the go-to-market team, and I'm very excited to jump right in here with Robert and Adam. If you haven't heard of Armored Things, we are a software company empowering pro sports and universities to better understand how their fans interact with their venues, driving towards various business outcomes, one of which we'll cover today is maximizing revenue per square foot. If you're here today, you already know two things. Today's fans expect more, and that means that you, and as venue leaders, are expected to know more about your fans and their fan experience. So what we want to do today is give you some insights into how Occupancy Analytics is making that possible. We want to help answer how occupancy numbers can eventually translate into ROI for your venues. With that, let's get started, and we'll do our best to keep about 10 minutes at the end for an open Q&A. So feel free to enter those as we start the panel here in the chat function. So welcome all, and the first question is for Adam. So Adam, what's the biggest shift you see in how stadiums rely on crowd data before building or investing? Are they always really focusing on maximizing every square foot?
Hey, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon for many. John, that's a great question, and I've given it a little thought here. So I want to touch on a couple of things that I think will answer that question. The first one is, I think many on the phone are looking at detecting patterns with digital engagement through a series of different ways. One of them, though, is social media, actually. And I think it's proving to be a great marketing ground as we look to connect with millennials and market tickets, as we think about data-driven campaigns and other things. So I think we often think about it maybe bricks and mortar and movement and redesign, but I think it's bigger than that, right? And how can we be using these digital patterns to influence our current client and our future? I think because that is a big piece of how we look at design with everyone on the phone is as we're trying to understand where we position product, right? Where we put our clubs, where we create layers of premium. A lot of that goes back to our fan base, and the millennial, that younger market is a big one. How do we capture them? So I think that marketing ground is huge. The other thing is, with electronic tickets, right? For some, we're as far as fingerprinting and retinal scans, they create a big opportunity for us to understand fan movement, right? And allowing us to do that, we can really start to understand buying habits. We can predict everything from ticket pricing to staffing on game day. And using all of those strategies, again, allow us to maximize every square inch. A couple more that I think we're seeing is, we're continuing to, as I talked about, observing behavioral patterns, and those journeys of our fans allow us to understand both the positive and negative experience that they're having, which is huge, right? We can use those positioning of patterns through Wi-Fi and cameras and the infrastructure that you're weaving in, and we can see where the successes are. We can see where I don't like to use the word failures, or the struggles. I like to say the opportunities. We can understand those opportunities, and we can work to be better. And the beauty is, it's very difficult move, move concessions and things. But as we think about infrastructure, as we think about planning, we can prepare ourselves to be flexible as we see struggles. And the last maybe on this question would be, and see if Robert has thoughts, but, with the Wi-Fi and the cameras and this analysis of data, it really does identify the areas of congestion, maybe unauthorized access to areas that people are getting. We can understand the busiest times, the dwell times, the heat maps. We can understand fans, pathways in and out of the stadium. I think that's huge right now, right? Understanding underutilized entrances and exits to improve traffic flow. I think traffic flow is a big thing that with COVID and post, right? How do we minimize traffic flow in concourses, in VOMs? How do we eliminate concession lines, toilet lines? So using this, crowd data, we can work to staff areas that need additional staff to help move people better, where we need to put security, those type of operational opportunities. So hopefully that answers your question a bit.
Certainly, Adam, and kind of piggybacking on that for Robert here. Now, when you set out to understand fan behavior at the Fiserv Forum, when you deployed occupancy software, what were you hoping to learn? Because after all, you already knew how many tickets you had sold.
Yeah. Hi, all those that are out there. Thank you for joining this call. So, so at Fiserv Forum, one of the things that you heard, we get to understand those congestion points and things. But if you think about it, if you really have a continuous improvement, it's all about guest experience, right? So a big part of that guest experience is how can you get rid of the friction points. And one of the things there is qualitatively, hey, I think, because we changed the stanchions, because we did X, Y, and Z, I think we're getting rid of those friction points. I think that we're getting to a better guest experience, but it's really hard to quantify that, right? To see if you really are improving things. So a big part of it for us when we went with crowd intelligence was really so that we could quantitatively see, are we really shortening those lines? Is it the time for a guest to get through the restroom, to get their food, to get in the front doors, to get to Fiserv Forum? Are we quantitatively improving that? And that was a big part of it, is that I think qualitatively, we think we know, but we wanted to really get to the actual measurements so we could see over time if we're going the wrong way or the right way. Because, for one or two events, it may look good and then you kind of forget about it. But when you have those quantitative measurements, you can really drill in on seeing if your operations are improving things. So that was one of the big things there, to name just one of a few. So
Thanks.
A few more if you want, John.
Oh, keep going. I mean, I think let's keep it to one example. Is there, once you have deployed it and it's now been, in a second season, is there an aha moment? Is there something that you've been measuring that surprised you or surprised you that we're working towards?
Yeah, that's the great thing, is to get those insights into what you didn't expect, right? So, if I kind of go back to, always thinking about guest experience first and foremost, right? And I think a big change for us was, we have Fiserv Forum, which is our, we've had it for about 3 years. So brand new state-of-the-art arena where the Bucks play. We have great concerts there. And if you saw any of the postseason, all the excitement outside of Fiserv Forum, we have our plaza and the whole campus there called the Deer District, right? So our focus has really gone from, inside the four walls of Fiserv Forum, really important for us. But now it's really gone out to the campus that we have, right? The 30 acres of land that we have. It's really thinking about the guest experience out there too, because whether a guest is approaching Fiserv Forum, whether they're exiting, or if they're just there for the watch party at our plaza, that is really the focus now. And, obviously we're around it being a safe environment, both inside and outside, fun and engaging. And really the two things, the outdoor space and the indoor space, it really needs to complement one another. So I think, one of the aha things was, as we were having the watch parties outside, understanding the movement of the crowd and being able to put stanchions where they needed to be. So we did have one event where we didn't really understand how the crowd was going to come to the watch party, and it did block some of our front doors. And so we learned from that experience, and it really starts way outside of Fiserv Forum as those guests to the plaza and Fiserv Forum are approaching. And when we could understand that crowd movement, that was when we could really, earlier than when they actually got there, and then it's too late to really manage the crowd in a safe, positive way, we could start to see where the ingress points should be, where we're checking bags. And that was a really important thing, so that we had the complement that the outdoor crowd, which was tens of thousands of our fans, that complements what's going on inside Fiserv Forum. And that was a really important thing to understand, that they really have to be symbiotic. So just one of those aha things there.
Yeah, no, thank you for the specific example. Definitely unique to your venue there, but very interesting, of course. Now, to Adam, given the impact of COVID on stadium experience, what is happening right now in terms of a shift in understanding fan behavior?
Good question. I think it's one we're all still working together to understand what the changes will be, right? And we've certainly, this question was asked even 6 months ago, certainly a year and a half ago. I think the answers have continued to evolve and change a bit. Certainly, we're not over COVID by any means, but it is transitioned in terms of how I think the facilities and our clients are treating things on a game or event in and out basis. I think, a couple of the big ones that are being studied certainly is crowd flow and comfort, right? We're seeing, more space to move, and which may include or not include spacing of seats, but I think people are a bit more hesitant, right? We're seeing that. So, what do our VOMs look like? What do concourses look like? And in terms of moving people, I think certainly, the strategies around queuing and security. And I'm hearing from many, and I'm sure Robert is seeing this, that, people have never liked to stand out, in lines to go through security, whether that be outside or inside of a pavilion area. But certainly moving forward, that congestion is a cause for stress for many. So certainly looking at how we can rethink and improve queuing and security to avoid congestion, both outside and inside concourses, as I mentioned. I think the food service expectation is quickly evolving as a result. It was certainly moving forward. We were seeing mobile ticketing moving forward and that has, really escalated. Most venues going to cashless. So speed is a huge thing, right? I think we're seeing a trend towards less walk-up stands. And, I think as we think about understanding fan behavior and using softwares, that'll be hugely important, especially in venues where they've gone to a split of still belly up concessions and more of that, grab and go. Certainly even, farther, I'll call it the Amazon go. And there's a lot of companies doing that where we can go completely hands-free and really, take out that personal, altogether. We're starting to see a view towards that. I think those are some of the big ones. I think the understanding and studying of behavior is really a huge opportunity for everyone within existing as we think about renovations. That's a big beauty of the software and of the technology that we have at our fingertips that's continuing to evolve. Is that it's one thing when we're building new and we can work to alleviate, and solve things from the past, but we don't know, right? But in a facility that has been around for 5, 10, 20 years, we know where our congestion points are, right? So when we start to think of renovations, it allows us to strategize, to reposition maybe a bit better. I think the one thing that we're doing post-COVID in a lot of facilities is setting up for multiple opportunities when it comes to portable and it comes to concessions, so that depending on how the world is evolving at any given time, we can, the client can shut down areas, open areas up, right? Really make sure that I think we're seeing increased security positions and other things so that quads are set up to be able to facilitate restrooms and concessions and retail and mothers' rooms and family rooms, right? Versus, yesterday and even today in many facilities, there may be one of those per level, or certainly not even one, right? And sometimes you got to go to different levels. So, those strategies are certainly things that we're seeing shifting.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, I mean, Robert, Adam's brought up quite a few specific examples that he's seeing from an architecture design perspective. I'm curious, what are some of the goals at Fiserv Forum moving forward as it relates to occupancy?
Yeah, no, he hit on a bunch of great things there. I mean, I think the real paradigm shift has been around, hands-free and touchless and those types of things. And when I say paradigm shift, once again, we're all about guest experience, right? And so when we first opened up Fiserv Forum, front of house, like our guest experience staff, like we're there to help. We and the friendly smile, all those positive things, right? Well, I would say that the past, 2 years with COVID-19, the focus is around, consumer confidence and being safe, right? And knowing that, less human touch is sometimes a safer play has really driven a lot of the things. So we went to mobile ordering last spring, just so you had less of those physical touch points, right? And then as you start to do these things, you're seeing like, wow, like this is actually creating less friction. The guests, the fans are adopting this entirely, because that's always a concern when you change things. Is the fan going to see that as a negative experience, right? Well, I think that because of COVID, we were able to position this stuff, which was the truth. It's going to provide more safety, a better experience for the fan. So the adoption was there. So the fan was more willing to really try these new things. And currently we do have a hybrid between mobile ordering through the Bucks app versus belly up concessions. So you can choose what you want, but what we've seen the fans want to do the mobile ordering. And I think it's because if you're once again going back to quantitative things, right? Like if the quantitative thing is the fan, the guest wants to be seeing the concert show, seeing the Bucks game as much as they can, right? So they want to have the least amount of time getting food, standing in a line to get in the front doors. That's where this stuff starts to really prove itself, right? So understanding that, hey, we have been decreasing the wait times and those types of things shows that, hey, the fans are in their seats doing what they want to do, watching the game. So that's been a big thing. The other thing on the backside is all the challenges right now with staffing, right? So, we are not exempt from that at Fiserv Forum here in Milwaukee. The great resignation has really impacted us. We have to be really smarter about how we use our staffing. And so being able to staff at the right size and do it in a way where it's not taken away from guest experience, that's the key thing. But understanding where your crowd is at what points during the event, before the event, during the event, and after the event allows you to really be more intelligent about, where those guest experience staff folks are, where our security guards are, where the food and beverage concessionaires are, all these things, and using technology like Wi-Fi to be able to really segment off the guest from the employee and seeing those heat maps. That's a key thing to really understanding, are those overlay of those heat maps doing, are they syncing the right way? Do you have the right staff at the right places at the right time? And that's really having that much more scientific, quantitative approach to it has allowed us to really essentially decrease staffing because we don't have as much, decrease it without diminishing the guest experience. And that's been hugely important for the Bucks this year, especially.
Now, we've covered a lot on guest experience, which of course is paramount for driving revenue per square foot or maximizing revenue per square foot. Robert, how important is it to tie occupancy to various other ways of driving revenue outside of just the guest experience piece?
Yeah, so when you're dealing with an operation like the Deer District and Fiserv Forum, when you think of the events now, or when we think of the events now, once again, we're going outside the four walls. Like, hey, we're pretty good about about understanding. Okay, for a given concert or a basketball game, these are the number of seats we'll sell. This is the staffing that we may need. Because all of that, obviously, staffing is an expense. So it's really more about the bottom line as opposed to really the top line. And that where crowd intelligence plays a big role in, right? So back to the outdoor space, right? So the outdoor space, we have cafes, kiosks selling food, beer, merchandise. We have a lot of flexibility with how we set up our plaza, depending upon what crowd is expected, right? So now we kind of know what to expect there. But I'll tell you, without knowing kind of what to expect, if you're planning for a huge event and maybe it's not as huge as you thought, you're kind of you are bought into all your staffing. Like that has to be staffed up front, right? And these outdoor events can be incredibly expensive when you talk about security and all of the other event staffing that needs to take place, to the point where maybe you shouldn't have that outdoor event, right? Or if you are going to have that outdoor event, it needs to be very scientific in what staffing you do need, because you have to balance that out with the revenue you're going to make. So it really, what it comes down to is it becomes this business case event by event. When the indoor space, the Fiserv Forum, as well as the outdoor space, because if we're going to stand up a lot of kiosks and staff, we need to be confident that the crowd is going to be there, and we need to be scientific so we're not overstaffing, because it all adds up real fast on the overstaffing.
Thanks for elaborating on not just the opportunity to drive revenue, but also how, of course, the bottom line is impacted there on staffing. So Adam, excuse me, Adam, in our industry, we keep hearing that AI or machine learning is top of mind for CIOs, right? Is that crossing over to your client base and when they're considering how to build and use their existing space?
I think it is, certainly, right? I mean, the ability to use, computer systems to adapt on a whim's notice without, any, let's say, explicit instruction. I think it's coming. It's happening. We're seeing that. I would say I would argue that is a bit of the grab and go experience, right? With like the Amazon, where it's technology based, where I'm using my phone, right? It's adapting, analyzing, triggering on a moment's notice based on what I'm picking up, setting down what my daughter next to me is grabbing. They can control how many people are in that space, right? So I would say that's headed that way. The other one I think is coming is restrooms and the ability to adapt and potentially shut down restroom congestion. So if that makes sense, right? We can analyze and study real time how many people are going in and out. And once we hit capacities, technology is there and driving to be able to literally close off a restroom or, change the sign outside a restroom to say max capacity closed, and then adjust as people move. So those are a couple, I think, hopefully kind of answer that in terms of what you're headed. I think there's more coming. I think we're going to see it in the retail world as well. But I think the tip of the iceberg is just being hit, and we're understanding how we can drive those. I mean, I guess the other one is, once adapted into, when people apt into, many facility or many teams apps, right? Once I go through that ticketing, now that everything's mobile, Robert's team can track me real time. They can see when I'm within 15 feet of a retail store and pop me a text that says, for the next 15 minutes, hop on in and we'll give you 20% on jerseys. They can see when I'm in the store. They can see when I'm around concessions. They can live analyze when they're not hitting the dollar, or low throughput in a retail store and hit that section of the bowl, right? And encourage them to come in. So I think those things are, allowing, we can use kind of that machine learning to adapt on a fly and, with those different algorithm and statistic models that are being developed.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, and now for Robert, I mean, it sounds like the question to Adam was really around, hey, are his clients starting to address it, this problem or this topic around AI and machine learning? I'm curious, Robert, around your peers in sports, whether it be the NBA or various other organizations. Are you seeing that there's a big focus on AI and machine learning? And from there, is there still kind of a major learning curve to be tackled?
Yeah, no, sure. So, I mean, obviously, if AI can help us improve, we're very excited about it. But when you look back to like organizations like the Bucks, there's so much opportunity in kind of like just the basic part of using technology to do some of the things we talked about, right? So I kind of see us all on we're in that very first phase of this data journey around understanding our venue and the crowds therein and how we operate it, right? So we're just trying to surface the descriptive, right? We're just trying to understand, where people are and how they are, what the movement is. And so just wanting to quantify that, then that would lead into the predictive. Right now we have the potential to predict things. And then of course, in the data journey, the last step is the prescriptive, right? So being way ahead of the ball and being able to really put in place the plan. But so I've always seen, understanding your crowd as really there's two big opportunities there. One is predicting how they're going to behave over time. You'll understand, especially in Milwaukee, given snow and those types of things, nighttime games, daytime games, weekend, weekday, you'll be able to understand and predict, how people will engage with the Fiserv Forum and with our plaza, so you can staff the right way at the right time. So getting to that predictive really isn't AI. It's just really understanding things and being able to predict. Now, on the AI where the software actually learns behavior and optimizes the offering or the staffing, or doing more with less employees, those are hugely promising, and we're hopeful. But I would say we're trying to first just solve kind of like the blocking and tackling of crowd intelligence and behavior before we even think about like true learning algorithms where, where we can put the right offer in front of somebody based on past, right? And we probably have to work in parallel a bit because there is a lot of ML AI software that's coming out. But right now, our focus is just really on, hey, can we get to a place where we can predict crowds? And then as we operate our venue, where can we make those small changes around restrooms and concessions so that we can always we can always make the optimum guest experience?
Thank you, Robert. No, that's very helpful. And I think it actually segues perfectly into a couple of the questions that we have received on the Q&A. And I will say for everybody on the call, keep shooting those questions in. We're going to start tackling those right now. So one question came in. It's around ancillary revenue sources that could be derived or driven by occupancy data, right? And so we've covered so far the fan experience that will lead to, F&B sales, et cetera. And then, of course, the improvement on the bottom line around smarter data-driven staffing. One question came in around promotions. And so I'm curious, Robert, Adam, have you either been approached or started thinking about how street side retail or promotions inside of your venues, how that could be impacted by knowing the true foot traffic, frankly, and eyeballs that would hit those promotional materials, how that would be impacted by crowd intelligence?
Yeah. So I mean, one quick one for the Bucks, right, is we understand who are in their seats during the game, during the concert, but it's really during the game when we have most of the sponsorship impressions that we need to have, right? So the courtside branding and all those things, we can give a pretty good tally on the number of impressions over the course of a game. What was always tough was on the concourses and in the plaza, right? Like, how can we do that? Well, now with really quantifiable crowd intelligence, where we're measuring those things, hey, at our silver bullet bar, how many impressions did that get for this game and at what times? And the sponsor had a promotion there. How did that go? Where do you put the promotions, right, that you activate, right? So it's a level of detail that's much more laser focused for our sponsorship team and our activation team, now that we understand kind of how the crowd moves around and how they partake in Fiserv Forum and the plaza. And that's been a huge help for both our sponsorship team and for our sponsors themselves.
Thank you, Robert. Adam, anything that you wanted to add there? We do have a couple questions around that specific topic, so this is really helpful and productive to answer that now. And then I do have a follow-up question for the two of you, and I will share just a quick slide here to kind of give a visual. Everybody's a lot of visual learners out there. A visual of our solution to help kind of maybe drive some more questions here.
Yeah, John, I think Robert said it best, and certainly we are often on the outside looking in terms of how the teams are using this and navigating promotion or looking at promotions and strategies. But certainly from sponsors and activations early on, day one, when we're trying to understand positioning of, Robert hit it. I think it's a huge opportunity to use it to sell sponsorships, to reallocate sponsorships, to renew sponsorships, once they understand that touch point. I also think it's good to use as you think about when fans are leaving, right? When do we see fans leaving the facility, and what demographic is leaving earlier at different times, as we think about promotionals or hitting them with retail, those types of things. Any behavioral patterns we can understand demographically we'll just allow the client and promotions team to shape their delivery method from the time you enter to the time you leave.
Yeah, one thing to add there too is like we plan to go live with some grab and go kiosks, right, which are kind of self-service kiosks for food and beverage. And if you get a group of folks that are GM and our back of house, our front of house folks in a room, we'll all have our opinions on where these should go. And because we're really we're going to be experimenting, right? So let's say we put one or two of these up, right? Well, where should those go to really see how well they work? Well, thinking they should go here or there is good, but knowing where they should go based on the crowd flow, that's what you want to know, right? You want to know, this is the hot spot. This is a hot spot. Let's put them there. And it just kind of takes the guesswork out of the equation. And that's kind of, back to revenue per square foot. Having those types of amenities there to both drive revenue and improve the guest experience, it just gives you more knowledge and intelligence into how to go about, experimenting. And then, hey, if it works, let's expand that program.
The other thing, John, real quick, I'd say based on what Robert, it also can sometimes tell us where not to put things, right? Because where we are seeing big congestion, right? We've all gone there, and we can sometimes over congest areas depending on the sponsor, depending on the brand at a concession stand. So, I think while we think about how to activate, I think we also use it to desaturize areas too, which is important to be paying attention to.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. We just have a few more minutes left here. So I do want to round it out with one last question that could be related to crowd intelligence or just technology in general. But I'm curious, both from Adam and Robert, what is one thing that you guys are doing behind the scenes from a tech perspective that you're most proud of over the last 2 years, last year?
I mean, I would say that how quickly we went from belly up concessions to this hybrid of using the Bucks app to actually order food, to be able to go up and get text when your food is done, and you can just go up and grab it. That to me has been invaluable for our guests. Once again, if you're measuring their time of actually enjoying the event, that has gone up because of that. So I would say our mobile ordering with the Clover hardware and the bypass software and going really fast to make that occur has been the best thing for us.
Yeah, I guess I would say I certainly agree. And I think the whole grab and go and the way we're thinking about concessions as a result of the last 2 years, they're not new. They're not things that were not being discussed and thought about and envisioned, but they certainly weren't happening, right? And the last 2 years has, on a positive, allowed everyone to push a bit harder and a bit faster in areas where maybe we wouldn't have moved so quickly, right? We would have allowed ourselves to continue to settle, continue to be okay with it. And that's something I think I'm most proud of internally, but really for everyone, is seeing everyone come together, right? You take away the competitive nature that's always been there, and I'm still seeing it today. We have one goal, I think, amongst all of us, whether we're architects, designers, manufacturers of products and softwares, or we're teams and anchors of major entertainment facilities. We're in this together to be better, right? And we're all learning and listening. And I feel like the learning and listening of everyone, and then the communication and willingness to share to be better holistically is at a level I hadn't seen before, and something I'm really proud of as an industry that we're taking to heart and continuing to do.
Well, thank you so much, Robert and Adam and Jessica, of course, for being a part of this panel here. I've been John McNamara with Armored Things. Again, if anyone has any questions specific to Armored Things, you'll be getting an email with all of our contacts, of course. Robert, Adam, thanks as always. Great to see you guys virtually. Can't wait for it to be in person again. And with that, I think we will close out the panel.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend.